The Shop to the Apartment. Written and read by W.P. Thrift. You can find me at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. Chapter 4. The Elder Chore List of Eternal Darkness. Walking down the sidewalk on the corner around the block from Turtle Creek, where their apartment was, Lantis headed to the gas station named Circle M. On the way, a terrible, rotten odor met his nose, coming from much further down the sidewalk. A flash of red and the twinkle in the eye of some man down there caught his attention, but only because of his keen eyesight. Unfortunately, his particularly keen sense of smell was having none of this, and begged him to hurry up and get to where he was going, far away from the man in red, who stood far off in the distance. As he approached the gas station, the Circle M, he immediately noticed that it did not sit on solid ground. There was a large hole, almost like a crater, underneath it. A wooden plank stretched from the side of the crater to the front door, the Circle M suspended in space above the crater, parallel with the sides of the crater. Lantis knelt down to get a better look, and saw a strained, pained man beneath the gas station, holding it up on his shoulders. He had a blue shirt on with the Circle M's logo, and a name tag which read, "Hello, how may I help you? My name is Atlas." The next thing Lantis noticed was a man around back, an employee of the Circle M, as he wore the same blue shirt that Atlas did. He was tied to a wooden plank, with eagles tearing out his liver, eating it raw right in front of him, while he screamed and cried for them to stop. "Hello, how may I help you? My name is Prometheus." Lantis had come here hoping to get a job, but seeing how the employees were treated, he thought better of this and began to back away slowly to head back home. Maybe he'd just sell his own blood plasma instead, like Radix had to do for his college entry fee. But then the large green dumpster on the curb next to the Circle M popped open, and a woman with crazy, unkempt black hair burst out and locked eyes with Lantis. She also wore a blue Circle M shirt. "You must be Lantis Armstrong, right? You called me about a job here?" she said. "Step into my office." Lantis panicked and whimpered a little, but then stepped forward to prepare to get inside the trash can. "This isn't my office," she yelled at him. "What are you, stupid? Oh, great, another stupid one." She got out of the trash can and began to walk towards the plank, which led across the crater and into the store. "How did you know that I was Lantis?" he had to ask. "Because you're a teenager, but your teeth aren't rotted through from meth, so there's absolutely no other reason for you to be here," she said. "My name's Janbert, by the way. I'll be your new boss." "Will be?" Lantis wanted to clarify. "So, I have the job? Just that easy?" "Believe it or not, but we don't get that much interest from people wanting to work here," Janbert told him. Lantis glanced down in time to see Atlas's feet, which strained under the weight of the store just before he entered. "I can't imagine why not." Lantis's capacity for sarcasm continued to grow more powerful the more he read about MMOs online, particularly reading comments on their official forums. At the counter was a man named Al. Lantis read the name on his name tag, who appeared to be roughly 90 years old. What Lantis didn't know was that he had worked at the Circle M since he was only 10, though back then it was just dealing drugs outside. Once he was old enough to work inside of the store, he took up the job which he currently had. Legends say he was even paid for this job once. Currently, Al was trembling, his legs about to give out. Tears streamed freely down his face, but despite the amount of pain that he was clearly in, he greeted Lantis with a smile, saying,
"Welcome to the Circle M! How may I make your stay here better?"
"Ever since that lazy bastard Henry stopped showing up for work," Janbert began, "poor Al here's been working non-stop. It's been over a week now. I tried to get Jason to come into work, but he unplugs his phone on days off. He's never gonna find the Golden Fleece at this rate."
"Golden Fleece?" Lantis asked.
"Yes, the paycheck for working here. It's not given out to just anyone, you know," Janbert told him. "You have to earn it. Generally through the completion of at least, 12 labors. But the labors aren't even granted to you until you sacrifice those closest to you."
"Then consider my housemates dead," Lantis nodded.
"Nah, doesn't work if they're just housemates or roommates or something," Janbert said. "It has to be family. Wife, children, something like that. We at the Circle M demand true sacrifice from our employees."
"Darn," Lantis said. "Then I got nothing."
"That's fine. Start working now, and you'll be able to collect your paycheck later, when you're older and have a family of your own," Janbert assured him.
While that seemed unfair, Lantis had been through the quest to get +5 pants in Groundskeeper 3, a modestly difficult Asian MMO. Working for years to get nothing until you sacrifice the lives of your family seemed pretty tame. Casual mode, even. Janbert went to her office, and Lantis followed after her. But Al shot out a skeletal arm and grabbed him by the shoulder as he passed by the counter.
"Kill me!"
Al begged, whispering into his ear. "Sorry, that won't help get me a paycheck," Lantis replied to him, then pulled away from his grip and kept going after Janbert to her office. There, she pulled out a blue Circle M shirt with a name tag on it she had already prepared for him. "Hello, how may I help you? My name is Lantis." Lantis pulls the shirt on over his Hawaiian shirt, and with that, he's officially a Circle M employee. "So, what do I do?" Lantis asked.
"I'll be supervising you for a bit, but I've been at work for 5 minutes already, and I really need to get home and sleep for a day or so," Janbert said. "Speaking of, Jason's scheduled to come in tomorrow at midnight, so you'll need to work for at least the next 32 hours. Sounds good?"
"What?" Lantis was surprised.
"Don't sass me," Janbert snapped at him. "Now here's your chore list. Do everything on it, plus take care of every customer. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to go let Al know that he can go home and get some sleep."
A loud gunshot was then heard outside of the office, in the store.
"Never mind. The problem worked itself out," Janbert said. "That's good. For a moment there I was worried I would have to actually do something. Speaking of, take the chore list and go get started. I'll be at my desk watching you on the monitors. Go on now. Go!"
"I've never used a cash register before. Shouldn't you at least show me—"
"Oh my God!"
Janbert threw her arms up into the air and rolled her eyes.
"Just go and do it! How stupid are you?"
Lantis saw the large white scroll on her desk, bound by a golden thread. It was the chore list she had referred to. He picked it up and nearly fell over. It had to be at least 50 pounds. Not that he couldn't lift it, but the weight had really surprised him. He lifted it with both hands and took it back into the main room of the store. Al was dead now, having shot himself in the head. Lantis drug him by his ankles outside and tried to get him across the plank, to at least put his body next to the dumpster. But he fell over the edge of the plank and landed in the crater. He figured that was good enough. Going back inside of the store, He went around the counter and slipped in the blood and smacked his head on a shelf, causing all the cartons of cigarettes to fall down on him as the shelf collapsed. His vision went blurry from impact, and before his sight even came back to him, he heard from the front door, "Hey, clerk boy, stop being lazy! All lying around on the ground! Get up and get me a big gulp! I'm here for the biggest size you got! Woo-hoo-hoo!" "Oh my God," Lantis whispered aloud. "It's happening again." Lantis served the dreaded Big Gulp lady her big gulp, and she mercifully left the store. He tried to get into the back and get a bucket to mop up the blood, which had now also stained the back of his new blue employee shirt red, along with his hair and cargo shorts. But before he could make it into the back, even more customers came in, and he had to stop what he was doing to serve them as well. Realizing he may need it, Lantis casually reached down and picked up Al's handgun without any of the customers noticing. He placed it in his pants, under his shirt, like he had seen some people do on TV. It immediately fell free, straight down the front of his shorts, hit the floor, and a shot fired off into his ankle. "Fuck!" Lantis screamed, hobbled. He collapsed to the floor, Al's blood now thoroughly soaking his butt. It had only been a glancing shot, but he had definitely lost some bone. He picked the gun back up, careful not to put any pressure on his right foot as he attempted to lift himself back up, put the gun in his pocket, and then slipped back down into the blood in the process of lifting himself back up. He leaned on the chore scroll, which was 3 feet in length, and so it was usable as a walking cane. He realized that he hadn't even unfurled it yet, so Janbert was sure to get mad at him if he didn't start on his chores soon. But there was so much blood that needed mopping up, not only behind the counter, but leading in a large streak from behind the counter to outside. And he probably needed to see a doctor about his ankle, and maybe go home to clean his blood-soaked clothes. When was he able to leave again? He checked the clock on the wall behind him. 32 hours still remained. No time had yet passed. "Are you paying attention?" the customer said. Lantis turned back. The customers that had come in had now all gotten beer and were at the counter already, ready to check out. He rang up the beer and asked for the amount of money the cash register said he was owed for it. "You're not gonna ask me for ID?" the 10-year-old asked. "What's ID?" Lantis asked. The boy smiled. "You're my new favorite clerk ever!" Lantis was thrilled at the positive feedback. "You mean I'm doing a good job? That's a relief. It's my first day, you know. I'm always worried about doing poorly. When you do poorly, people call you a noob and they kick you from their group. It's not a good time." The boy, being an avid player of online video games, actually knew precisely what Lantis was talking about. The old man behind him had no idea, though, and just wanted them to hurry up. "I've got until 5 p.m. to get drunk before the wife gets home, so let's hurry this up," the old man fussed. Lantis took a step back to open the cash register, and when he hobbled backwards, he felt himself stomp down onto one of the cartons of smokes that had fallen off the shelf earlier. "You're gonna pay for that!" he heard Janbert scream from her office, having seen that on the monitor. Lantis finally rang up the boy and sent him on his way. Then he dealt with the old man behind him, and then the 37 people behind him, only a few of which were there to rob him at gunpoint. And then he was finally able to start hobbling towards the back room to fetch the mop and bucket, when Janbert met him at her office door, the office he had to go through to get to the mop in the back. "Why in the Sam hell have you not started on your chores yet?" Janbert demanded sternly. "There's been customers," Lantis replied. "Then take care of them!" she screamed. "I did." "Then what's the problem?
The chores should be started on.
I couldn't. There were...
Oh my God! You sound like a broken record! And is that owl's blood on the floor? Why haven't you cleaned that up?
I'm only one man, Lanta said in sorrow and desperation. Chambert just rolled her eyes while taking a bite of the 12th donut she had had today, then walked back into her office while prattling off some inane lecture about how she was in the business of solutions, not problems. Lantis didn't listen to her, though, because his ears were starting to ring pretty bad from the concussion he had received when his head hit the shelf earlier, but he had yet to become fully aware of it. Mopping up the floor and putting the shelf back together and getting the blood-soaked cigarettes back on it was a panicked back and forth between getting the tiniest amount of mopping done before running back to the cash register to check someone out, then running back to the mop on a broken ankle just in time to hobble right back to the next customer. Incidentally, every single customer gave him a snotty attitude because he wasn't at the cash register the second they were ready to go, and Janbert kept bitching more and more at him for not having the floor spotless already. "Can I have a soda?" Lantis asked her, feeling his energy levels bottoming out from only having bread and sludge ball today to eat.
Sure. Just be sure to write it down and I'll take it off of your next paycheck,
Janbert replied. Lantis gasped in utter delight. "You mean it doesn't even cost me money?" With that knowledge, Lantis immediately dumped all of the crap-quality cigarettes out of his pockets and stuffed them full of high-quality cigs from the shelves before hobbling over to the drinks in the store. He was about to grab a soda, but then saw something labeled energy drink. No idea what that was. It still sounded like something he needed. Energy. So he downed the first one quickly and then grabbed a second one to nurse behind the counter. Suddenly, the floor was mopped, and he had no recollection of ever doing it. He also noticed that he was now able to walk on his ankle, capable of ignoring the burning rush of pain that came with it. "I understand now," Lanta said. "Energy drinks are magic. What else has energy in it?" A customer that he had been unconsciously waiting on told him,
"Try the energy pills."
And then he pointed them out behind the counter.
"Hey, speaking of, you've got to fill out this long form to buy those. But my hand is cramped today and I don't really feel like filling it out. So maybe..."
Lantis tore open the pack of pills. The instructions read, "Take no more than 4 per day." Lantis stopped reading before the part which read, "In 6-hour intervals," and just downed 4 of them right then and there. The floor seemed to move up and crooked, slanting downward in whatever direction he faced. He could move across the floor effortlessly, the downward slant breezing him along. His pupils grew so large that the blue in his eyes was no longer visible.
"So yeah, about those pills,"
the customer continued. Lantis threw a handful of boxes at the customer, then walked off without asking him to pay for them. He tore into the food section of the store, containing mostly gas station chicken sandwiches and hamburgers, and ate several of them before he began to take the time to take the wrapper off. Janbert only looked up to notice him eating the one, and without the telltale wrappers from the rest, assumed that that was his first burger.
"You can use the gas station's microwave to heat that, you know,"
she told him. "Of course! It's all so clear now," Lantis declared, all of the secrets of the universe entering his mind at once as he rushed over to the microwave, his ankle making the weirdest clicking sound as he ran on it, and threw the burger in before turning it on. Completely forgetting about the burger at this point, as he was already overstuffed, Lantis walked away from the microwave and finally went over to the chore list. "Hey! Are you listening to me?" came a vibration in the air which Lantis eventually understood to be words. He looked over twice, not certain if the first time he looked over or the second was the actual time he turned his body, and which one was a hallucination. He screamed at the customer,
"Get out!"
Jambert came out from the back.
"You don't have to tell me twice."
She assumed he had been addressing her.
"I've been at work for 30 minutes now. I'm gonna need a vacation for a month. Anyway, Jason will relieve your shift in 32 hours. From my time spent supervising you, you can now consider yourself a fully trained employee. Congratulations, and good luck."
Lantis was now a fully armed and operational gas station employee. Jambert left the store, leaving Lantis to his own devices. His devices which brought him promptly over to the store's selection of pain pills, the chore list forgotten. He downed a handful of several different types, not bothering to read what they were or did. He just knew that at some point he had been in pain and had considered doing this. So he was doing another version of himself a favor, he assumed. Finally returning to the chore scroll, Lantis unfurled it to see what exactly he would be doing here. As though he were shot out of a cannon, Lantis shot over the counter and collided with the back wall of the store, knocking cartons of milk and eggs off of the shelf. His mind burned with eldritch images, flashes of constellations, and moving, twisted symbols which could only perversely be called words. He shook his head clear of it and asked himself, was it the energy pills that did that? Returning to the counter, he only served customers for a bit, sipping from a bottle of water he had taken off the shelf, and keeping a cold, wet bathcloth against his forehead until all the spinning finally stopped. He needed to focus up, because how was he supposed to do his job under such conditions? After a few hours had passed and the room stopped spinning, he hobbled over on his now swollen and much worse off ankle to the chore scroll. He opened it again, only squinting this time, and he felt his body lurch. Not as far, as he had taken so many precautions and didn't look at the chore list head on. Indeed, it had not been the energy pills, but rather the scroll itself which had knocked him across the store. He was certain of this now. "What is this?" Lantis mused to himself. He worked out a system of mirrors to reflect the scroll onto the wall and try to read it. Even then, the letters were all backwards, twisted, moving around like dust floating free in a beam of sunlight in the morning. Only through tremendous effort, which he employed between dealing with a non-stop drip feed of customers coming into the store, Lantis was capable of slowly deciphering the elder chore list of eternal darkness. It had been scribed by some old hermit from his mountain dwellings in some dark corner of the earth, long ago, who claimed to hear the voices of the gods in his nightmares, frightful, ancient gods of chaos and death, and they spoke to him this list, which Circle M continued to use to this very day. Lantis began to do his chores, while of course still being the only person available to wait on everyone coming into the store, all of whom had to wait, as he was always preoccupied with some bullshit task or another. Sweeping and mopping the floor was at least out of the way, since he had taken care of all the blood earlier. So that's one thing down. Only 1,000 more tasks to go. One task of particular interest was scraping all the gum off the sidewalk outside with a straight razor that had no grip, so his fingers gradually became bloodier and bloodier. Little did he know, but this had been the breaking point for many employees before him. Very few were the men or women who could hold such an easy out as a straight razor and not take the initiative in his situation. You would think that they could just walk away from the job, but it's not that easy, If they were working at a place like the Circle M, then they clearly needed the money, so much so that it was either get the money from this job or something much worse would occur. Starving to death, or facing a jail sentence due to unpaid bills, or just some drug habit that they had to fund, if they were too unskilled at petty theft to get their funding that way. Any number of things. The razor was always the simplest solution. But due to sheer moxie, Lantis's breaking point was different from most, and after razoring all the gum up, he came back outside with a high-powered air gun to blast all the oil off the ground, spilled by cars over time sitting in the parking lot. At one point, Peter came by with a delivery, which he had loaded up into the back of his van. "Man, so many cigarettes," Peter commented. "Do y'all really sell this many?" "You have no idea," Lantis replied. Peter did a double take, not having paid attention to who was picking up his delivery until now. "Holy crap, it's you! You really did get a job! I'm so proud of yuz!" "Life is void of meaning. Abandon all hope, ye who enter these doors," Lantis told him. "Aw, you're such a pessimist," Peter replied. "Oh, no," Lantis said. "That's actually our store motto." Lantis pointed over to the door which Peter had entered, and sure enough, right outside the door was a sign posted up which said exactly what Lantis had, except in big, bold, colorful letters. Also written in wingdings so nobody could read it. "Your soul is mine." Signed, Janbert. "I have to go wipe off the shelves now," Lantis told him, grabbing the bucket and rag and walking over to a shelf, getting his hands all sudsy, and then another customer came in screaming for him to get over here and sell him cigarettes, causing Lantis to scream incoherently while wiping his hands back off and going back over to take care of this. "Well, you have fun with that," Peter told him. "I've only got one more shift after this and then I'll be home. I'll see you there." "Tomorrow night," Lantis told him. "I have to work tonight, and tomorrow." Peter suddenly looked worried. "Wait, you have to work here? After midnight?" "I think we fill up the moat and withdraw the plank then. At least that's what was written on my chore list," Lantis told him.
"It is,"
Atlas called to him from under the store.
"But please, no crocodiles this time."
"Sorry," Lantis called back to him through the floor. "I don't want Jambert to fuss at me."
"But can people still get stuff from the store then?"
Peter questioned. "Oh, yes," Lantis said. "They toss their money, usually paper money wrapped around a rock, across the moat and into the store, and I toss their goods back to them. Those instructions are written on the chore list, too. Then at 3 a.m. I drain the lake, wrestle the crocodiles back into their pen, and we'll continue normal operations after that."
"Cool,"
Peter said.
"Can I do the crocodile wrestling? I'll come back as soon as we're past 3 a.m. I'm already up on local law, so I know the kind of badness that can happen outside before then."
Sure, Lantis agreed. Peter was suddenly super hyped for crocodile wrestling early in the morning. He hadn't wrestled crocodiles in... he couldn't even remember how long. And with that, Peter went off to his next job, and Lantis got back to his chores at the Circle M. The next day after the sunset, Jason was dropped off by his Argonaut buddies and went into the store to relieve an exhausted Lantis, who began his long, limping trip home with a walking cane he had also written off as an employee expense at the store. It was truly surprising just how much broken glass can accumulate outside overnight, as Lantis discovered when he started walking across it barefoot all the way across the Circle M's parking lot over to the sidewalk. The irony of him only now considering getting shoes was that his swollen ankle would prevent his right foot from fitting in a shoe. As he hit the Turtle Creek sidewalk, that same odor from earlier struck him again. It was so pungent, so rancid, like a million soiled diapers having a vomit party all around him. He looked around until he spotted the source. The same man dressed in red. He had been walking non-stop since the day before, and had only made it this far, standing just between Lantis and the entrance to the apartment complex. Lantis would have to walk past him in order to get there, he realized, to his horror. This stink was going to get a lot worse before it got any better. Lantis, in his delirium brought on by a level of exhaustion he never dreamed was possible, while being soaked in the blood of a co-worker who had passed just before his first shift had begun, along with his own blood from the straight razors that his job required him to use, began to sing to himself as he approached the smelly man in red. Red hat, red coat, red pants, red boots, a cheerful gummy grin on his toothless face, a skip in his step, his very slow step, which involved taking one single step every 5 minutes and scratching his large, white, filthy beard in between. But jolliness was all Lantis saw in the man's jelly belly full of parasites, the kind of jolliness which would bring joy to the hearts of boys and girls everywhere across the world. Here comes Dumpster Claus, here comes Dumpster Claus down Turtle Creek Highway. He's got a bag that's full of cans and his body odors cray. Hear him detox, itching and scratching and screaming at the top of his lungs. There he goes, so cover your nose, 'cause Dumpster Claus is headed this way. Lantis continued to sing all the way home, where he stripped down to nothing, much to the protest of his housemates, and went straight into Peter's bedroom, where he curled up in the nest he had made on the other side of Peter's bed and fell fast asleep. And then the phone rang, and he was woken up again 5 minutes later by Radix, who was there to inform him that Jason was feeling sick, and so Janbert was ordering him to come back into work today, right now. That concludes Chapter 4 of The Apartment. Tune in every Tuesday for new chapters. If you would like to reach me, you can do so at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. That's LANTISARMSTRONG. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's chapter. Do you know him? Yes or no?